Come into my barn, kids.
I see tracers from their pistols.
I see a guy right here on top of the logs.
Yeah, one's running.
Good spot.
He's dead.
Hey folks, Dave here, and it's time to talk about Ghost Recon Wildlands again. Last year, Joel and I did a second chance game review for Wildlands, but at the time, the PvP multiplayer still wasn't out yet for the game. Today, I want to focus on a second chance review, specifically just for the Ghost Wars multiplayer. Just recently, Ubisoft announced Year 2 of content for Wildlands. This includes not only the single player mode, but the Ghost Wars PvP mode as well. The question is, has the base game provided enough value to justify the initial purchase cost? And from that, can we tell what Year 2 might offer as far as value? Let's dive in and take a look.
Oh, behind the tree.
Got him. Oh my gosh, this Vector. Now, if you haven't played Ghost Wars, here's a brief overview of the primary game mode, which is elimination. As the name suggests, the goal is pretty simple. You want to eliminate the other 4-man team completely. However, once you take someone out, they're not killed instantly, they're just downed. This gives their team an opportunity to get to their body and revive them and get them back in the fight.
How close to your body is he?
He was around the next corner.
I heard movement there. Hold on. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
Wow. Nice.
That was worth it.
They revived everybody. Nice.
What's those nades?
Watch out. Yeah, watch out for a flank. James got the other one.
Woo! Yeah!
Oh.
Once revived, players only have half of their normal health, but that can be revived over at a health box along with your stash of ammo. If you're not able to kill the entire enemy team within the time limit, which is usually 8 minutes, there is a draw as long as at least one member of both teams are still alive. If one team is hiding extra well, there is a recon tower in the center of the map, which allows you to spot enemy positions for 45 straight seconds. They're just constantly marked. There are a handful of other game modes, including a prisoner release and protection mode, as well as a basically defend the point mode where you set off a radio station and then have to defend the radio. But even in these modes, killing all 4 of the other team members ends the game, and generally that's what happens. The objective modes tend to end up being just a slightly different playing version of the deathmatch. So how does the game play, and is it actually fun? In my opinion, the answer is a very emphatic yes. The game is actually a lot of fun, and the first few months that it came out, me and my usual group of friends were playing it constantly. It wouldn't be an unusual Friday night to have a 5 or 6 hour session of Wildlands Ghost Wars to end the week. Despite whatever flaws the base single-player version of Ghost Recon Wildlands might have, the game is very expansive and the world looks quite good, especially the vegetation, and the locales are interesting and well detailed. This gave the Ubisoft team working on Wildlands Ghost Wars a nice jumping off point for the multiplayer because all they had to do was cut out a section of the map and balance it for PvP multiplayer. This meant that right at launch you had very highly detailed, very interesting maps with tons of vegetation and hiding spots and flanking options, and they were able to crank new maps out quite quickly. Because of how detailed the undergrowth is in Wildlands and how pretty expansive most of these maps were around launch, the initial games were incredibly tense. For a game that I played very casually in single player, Wildlands PvP became almost an obsession of, creeping up from point to point as you leave your spawn, constantly communicating with your teammates, droning, trying to figure out where those enemy teams might be while avoiding exposing your player character at any point as you move forward. Again, the tension and intensity of this 4v4 mode was just fantastic, especially in those first few months. It also helped that while it launched very, very late into the game's life cycle, 6 months after the game had gone live, you finally have multiplayer, this was at least a good amount of time for them to do a very good job with the initial release. It wasn't very buggy, and it was quite well balanced right there at launch. There were a couple of wonky UI issues and a few balance things that had to be shifted as the months moved forward, but for the most part, right at launch, you had an intense playable and rather full-featured multiplayer, again, just about 6 months late compared to the original game's launch. Now overall, I've been pretty positive here about Ghost Wars, but I want to actually talk about some of the negatives as well, because there are a couple of rather glaring issues with the game. The number one issue being matchmaking and how small the community has gotten. Right out of the gate, because it was so late launching, the community, especially here on PC, was getting smaller right from the start. It was never huge, maybe a few thousand players, but within a few months it was down to a few hundred players active in matchmaking even on, say, a Friday night. This led to a couple of issues, one of which being that you had a chance of being match-made with entirely new players. My team, who had put, 60 or 70 hours into it, could end up fighting a couple of level 1s, 2s, and 3s who might not have any of the new classes unlocked besides something like Sniper and Scout, and who just weren't familiar with the maps and the mechanics of the game. This would happen pretty frequently, where we wouldn't just be fighting low-level players for a match or two, but for an hour or two at a time. Or, as you might expect, we'd have the opposite problem. We, with our Prestige 1s and 2s, would join matchmaking, and all of a sudden we're fighting a clan of Prestige 10s with all their matching avatars and clan tags and their, preset strategies for the maps. And although we had a lot of hours in the game, we played relatively casually, and we just didn't have a level of organization to put up against those higher level squads. The more time that went by and the more content that was released, the more we wanted to play and the more balanced the game got, but the harder it got to find a good match because of the hit and miss matchmaking. As 2018 rolled around and the matchmaking pool grew even smaller, you would have an additional problem where players outside of your region would join your match because their region just had no one playing. Ubisoft released a special ranked mode, trying to get some of the higher level players to focus on that instead of the casual mode instead, but that was almost an even worse problem because you'd have a clan of Prestige 10s that would sit in ranked mode, and they would literally be the only players, the four of them, in ranked matchmaking. So no matter what your team's ranks were, if you wanted to play ranked, you're going to play against these guys because they're all that's out there. As more time rolled on, the patches also became more and more infrequent. They wanted to work on these larger game modes and larger content packs with additional classes dropping with every single update, but the problem was, because of these larger content updates, balance issues and problems in the game were left neglected for way too long. An example being the medic drone. Normally, if a player on your team is downed, you have to run out to where their body is and revive them with a slow process. You gotta give them the EpiPen, and it's very, very difficult, and odds are, if someone's watching the body, you're gonna get shot. The medic, however, had a medic drone at launch. The drone allowed them to just zoom right along the terrain and get an instant revive with no countdown timer on any downed players on their team. Additionally, players on the enemy team wouldn't even be able to see the medic drone in the air until, I believe it was 3 seconds after it was launched, which, because it was so fast, was plenty of time for the medic to get over to the body and get that downed player up before anybody else realized what was going on. The medic also had some very solid weapons and even landmines, making them one of the most powerful classes in the game, and it remained like that for 3 or 4 months. There was a lot of complaints about this class, and you would see every single team that had a medic unlocked running it, but then when the patch finally came out to balance the medic, it went way too far. It just felt like Ubisoft was trying to play catch up. They nerfed the drone so that it's instantly spotted as soon as it's launched. They made it so that snipers can insta-kill drones, and they also took away the medic's mines. Perhaps if these balance changes had been done one at a time, they could have found a middle ground. But instead, because of the long delay between patches more recently in Ghost Wars, they nerfed it really, really hard, making the class pretty frustrating to play as now. It went from way overpowered to completely nerfed just in one gigantic patch. While the core gameplay remains very, very fun in my opinion, the issues plaguing the game now are pretty much related to the size of the community just being so small, the slow patch cycle being ineffective to deal with balance changes that need to be made to keep the game fair and interesting, but I think there's also a problem with how the gameplay style has changed. Over the months, the players realized that one of the most effective strategies to prevent a stalemate in Wildlands Ghost Wars PvP was to all run assault classes, take athletic sprinter perk, which allows you to run significantly faster than usual, and you just play super aggressively. It's a very valid strategy, don't get me wrong, but more and more often you're seeing experienced players, and now because the pool of them is so small, that means almost all of them, running assault classes nearly exclusively. It's very rare now that you see a team that moves strategically and uses scouting and positioning to get the upper hand. A lot of that tactical gameplay of the first few months of the game has disappeared, and now it's turned into a not so great Call of Duty where everyone's just charging forward as soon as the timer's down, trying to catch the enemy by surprise and get those quick kills. Again, I'm not complaining about a aggressive strategy. I'm complaining that the other strategies are being completely abandoned in favor of the aggressive strategies. And Ubisoft appears to be unable to find a way to kind of slow that down, although I have seen them replying to some feedback discussions in their official forums saying that they are looking into what they could do to help tone down those aggressive strategies and bring back some of that chess-style gameplay of the first few months of the game's launch. Much like the single player, the Ghost Wars multiplayer in Wildlands has a number of cosmetic unlocks that you can get, and some of the packs that you can buy from the Ubisoft store have both single player and multiplayer only options that you can use. The real kicker here is there's no way to earn these Ubisoft points through just normal gameplay to unlock these cosmetics. The only way to get them is to either purchase the cosmetic or themed sets with Ubisoft points, which cost 100% real money, or to buy the loot crates with Ubisoft points, which again cost real money. You get one of each type of loot crates for free when you first get the game, and that should be a warning to you as you unlock them because they're mostly full of just junk. While the game has tons of neat cosmetics like, for example, the Ranger hat, and different types of gas masks and all kinds of stuff to customize your character, loot crates are generally full of a mix of just junk, from a random hat that you didn't actually want to a bunch of face paints that you're never going to use. While it is cool that you can customize your character to such a detailed degree, even in the multiplayer, the point purchasing system and unlocks are just very player unfriendly, and it's a big turnoff for the game. Even if you don't buy the loot crates and you just buy the cosmetic packs, they're weirdly expensive, with the equivalent points requiring about $9 or $10 to unlock a single pack with a couple of weapon skins and a hat or two to go along with them. That's 5 or 6 items for $10. Pretty steep if you ask me. So, at the end of the day, let's talk about the value of the base Ghost Wars multiplayer as well as the upcoming Year 2 Season Pass. For both areas, again, I'm focusing on just the Ghost Wars content, not the single player content. Is Ghost Wars in its current state worth the purchase? At full price, as much as I really do still enjoy the game, I have to say no. The community is just too small, and the future of the game is still a little bit uncertain. However, if there's a free weekend for Ghost Wars in Wildlands, or if you see the game on sale, I would highly recommend picking it up or trying it out. It is just a really intense, fun game still, as long as you can find a match.
Oh, there's a guy. I saw a guy running in front of that building over there, Dave. Yeah, right where that yellow spot is.
Jeez,
Nice! Dave, right there.
Yeah, let me get you up first.
Yep, he just ran across the road. There he is, right there, right there.
Actually, he might see me.
He's running to the right. There's another guy with him. 2 guys. They're flanking. Oh, here he comes on the left. Oh, damn. Get him, Dave. 2. Bro. Get the other guy. Get the other guy. Nice.
Nice.
Can you, get me up, maybe? Oh, Dave. The CZ. Oh, he's right there. He's right there. Yeah, never stood a chance.
As far as Year 2 goes, I think the best strategy for Ubisoft going into the Year 2 Ghost Wars content is to get a better foundation going for the game. Don't just work on new game modes and classes for that season pass, which of course people are paying for, but perhaps separate the content updates from balancing changes for the base game, and be more proactive with tweaking how the gameplay works based on player feedback and your own analytics. I'm sure that Ubisoft can see how matches are playing out. Do some work to bring that aggressive style under control a bit and bring some of that strategy back. Aggressively push sales. Get more people buying the game, get those free weekends going, which they are doing. I'm very happy to see that. Keep that up, Ubisoft, and get the community excited about the game, back on track, get some new blood in, and ensure that there's enough people playing that the new players aren't completely rolled over by the experienced veterans. Alright guys, there you have it. That is a look at what Ghost Recon Wildlands Ghost Wars currently offers and what it might offer here in the future. Again, in my opinion, it's a pretty solid multiplayer game, one of my only enjoyable third-person shooters. It's one of the most competitive and intense gaming experiences that I've enjoyed in a third-person setting in quite a while, and it really does hurt to see it kind of struggling right now. There's also a good chance that Year 2 is going to revive the community, and we're going to see the game not only reach a stable amount of players, but perhaps even grow to a larger overall community like Rainbow Six as well, although I doubt we're ever going to get that kind of revival story here in Wildlands. At the end of the day, my recommendations would be pick up Wildlands, just the base game, on sale, see if you like the multiplayer, try out some of the free crates and whatnot, and some of the free classes you can unlock just with the base game content, and from there, just keep playing it and figure out how much people are actually sticking around before you dive in to that Year 2 content. That about sums it up, guys. For now, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like the video if you found it helpful and you enjoyed it. You can subscribe for more content like this, and for now, I'll see you all next time. Sniper was laying down.
Battle range activated.